Richard Marles, welcome.
Good evening, David.
So Donald Trump says everyone should evacuate Tehran. Australia's advice, however, is to shelter in place. Can I ask, who should Australians be listening to? Should they shelter or should they get out?
Well, the reality is that the airspace above Iran and Israel right now is closed. There are thousands of Australians across Iran and Israel, and so our advice is very much shelter in place, to look at the Smart Traveller website, the advice which is coming from there. We do have the consular emergency contact and people are registering with that. Right now we've got about 650 people in Iran who are seeking an assisted departure and about 600 people in Israel. So we will continue to work in preparation for being able to do an assisted departure, and as soon as the airspace opens in any form, we will start putting that into effect.
The advice for Australians is to continue sheltering, not join the traffic jam of people trying to drive out of Tehran after Donald Trump's warning.
Our advice is to shelter in place, but again, first and foremost, it is to follow the Smart Traveller website. I mean, this is a moving situation, and so we continue to update that advice on that website.
What about the statement from President Trump that his return to Washington has nothing to do with a ceasefire? It's much bigger than that. Have you been briefed on what's coming?
Well, I'm not about to go into what we know about the circumstances publicly. Obviously, we've been briefed from our own agencies, and our agencies...
From the Americans as well.
Well, our agencies talk across countries, so the information that we're being briefed about involves conversations with the United States, but I'm not in a position to start talking about that here. I think you can well understand that the circumstances in the Middle East are very much occupying the attention of President Trump, and so you can obviously understand his decision to go back to Washington DC.
Well, clearly one of the options being weighed would be whether the US now joins this conflict and uses its bunker buster bombs in Iran. What's Australia's position on this? You've been calling for de-escalation. That would seem to be the opposite of de-escalation.
We are very much calling for de-escalation, so let me make that clear. I mean, we understand Israel's right to defend itself, and we also understand the threat that the Iranian nuclear and ballistic missile program represents to the peace and stability of the region and, in fact, the world. But it's for those reasons we are urging diplomacy and dialogue right now, and to take steps to de-escalate.
So would Australia actually support or oppose US involvement in this?
Well, we are not a part of this conflict, and I'm not about to speculate on what the United States might do. I take the United States at face value, and if you look at the statements that have been made by the United States, they say that they are adopting a defensive posture and a defensive posture of their personnel and assets within the region.
If you're calling for de-escalation, surely that means not supporting a US engagement.
What I'm not doing now, David, is speculating about what the US might do. I take the US at face value. I mean, they are saying they are adopting a defensive position, a defensive posture, I should say, and that is defensive of their people and their assets within the region.
So you don't understand them to be considering an offensive role?
Well, I take it at face value in terms of what the public comments of the United States has been. Our position is very clear. We are calling for a de-escalation in what is happening in the Middle East. We want to see a move towards diplomacy and dialogue, and I guess implied in that obviously is a very clear concern that we have about the opposite, about this escalating to some broader conflict.
Would Australia support in any way, militarily, a US involvement in this conflict?
Well, again, I'm not going to go down the path of speculating, but we're not a part of this conflict, and our position.
But would you support the Americans if they were?
Well, again, we're walking down a path of speculation here, which I'm not going to go down. We're not a part of this conflict. We are calling for de-escalation. We've made that completely clear. What we seek here is a move to diplomacy and dialogue, and our voice is being exercised with many other countries around the world.
But for Australia's part,
objective.
Can I just clarify, is the US allowed to launch any missions from Australia's northern bases?
Well, again, there's a whole lot of speculation in all of that.
No, that's a simple question about what permission the US has, regardless of what's happening right now. Are they allowed to launch missions from Australia?
Well, we have a system of full knowledge and concurrence in terms of the way in which any country operates from Australia, and that includes the United States, and we are not a part of this conflict.
Okay. Look, Israel, for its part, has been targeting not just nuclear sites, but oil and gas facilities, an airport, now a state television building. There's been no pushback from the US against Israel expanding its targets. Is Israel still abiding by international law and acting purely in self-defence here?
Well, again, I think this leads to the comment that I've made. I mean, what we want to see is a de-escalation here. We are concerned.
Is that a de-escalation?
Well, we are concerned that what is playing out in the Middle East is giving rise to the potential for escalation.
Is that what Israel is doing?
Well, I repeat what I said. We are concerned about what's unfolding in the Middle East giving rise to escalation. Escalation in terms of the breadth of the conflict, escalation in terms of giving rise to a conflict which is broader than what we're seeing now.
Is that your concern, that particularly if the US were to get involved, this could broaden? We could see retaliatory attacks.
We have made really clear, our fundamental concern here is this escalating, and that we've been saying that from the outset. That's why we're calling for de-escalation. That's why our voice is very much in seeking diplomacy and dialogue. The starting proposition here is we are deeply concerned about this escalating into something broader. And that's why we've taken the position we have. And I might say many other countries around the world are taking exactly the same position for exactly the same reason.
Let me turn to the Prime Minister's meeting with President Trump that's been called off. They were due to meet tomorrow. Was there a courtesy call to Anthony Albanese to cancel the meeting, or did Australia find out via a tweet?
Oh, look, I mean, I'm not on the ground with the Prime Minister in Canada, but I think we can all understand the circumstances here. I mean, what's playing out in the Middle East, or the entire conversation we've just had, is deeply serious.
Sure, but a call or a text message, I mean, you always say they're our closest partner and ally. Surely a close friend makes a call.
Well, I'm not on the ground in Canada, so I don't know the specifics of what's happened there, but I think we all understand that this is going to occupy the attention of the President of the United States, and it's completely reasonable in those circumstances that he returns to Washington, D.C.
So is Australia now seeking an urgent meeting at the earliest opportunity between the Prime Minister and President to deal with the tariff issues and the fate of AUKUS as well?
Look, well, I think we just need to kind of take a step back and take a deep breath. Our relationship with the United States has always been in a good place. It is in a good place under this administration. The Prime Minister and the President have spoken on numerous occasions by phone.
Well, the last time, to be fair, they did that was May the 5th. That was before the US announced a review of AUKUS, before it doubled the tariffs on steel and aluminium. Surely there needs to be some urgency around getting a face-to-face.
And there is a whole lot of other levels at which our two countries communicate. I met with my counterpart, Pete Hegseth, in Singapore. We have officials engaging frequently. The Trade Minister has met with his counterpart. So the Foreign Minister has met with her counterpart.
Is the government now seeking a meeting with the President?
I am sure that we will see in the not too distant future a face-to-face meeting between our leaders. But let's be clear, on the critical issues, we have made our position clear in relation to tariffs, and more broadly in respect of tariffs. We are at the lowest tariff rate that America has with countries around the world.
But on AUKUS,
on AUKUS, there's kind of been a lot of breathless commentary here. The United States is doing a review. It's an incoming administration which is undertaking that. That's exactly what the UK government did when they were elected in July of last year.
But have you spoken to Pete Hegseth since they announced this review to just make sure that the US support is guaranteed for AUKUS?
Well, we've been aware of the review for some time. It's obviously been for the United States to announce, so we've not spoken about it.
Have you called him? Or
I've met Pete Hegseth.
This was before the review.
I met Pete Hegseth in Singapore, and we've known about the review for some time. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of the meeting I had with Pete Hegseth beyond what I've already said publicly. But it was a positive conversation in relation to the future of AUKUS. That America is engaging in a review is a perfectly natural thing for an incoming government to do. It is what we did when we came to office back in May of 2022. We'll engage in that review as America engaged in ours, as we engaged in the United Kingdom's.
All right, Acting Prime Minister Richard Marles, thank you.
Thanks, David.
Well, before Donald Trump left the G7, he signed up to a joint leaders' statement which said Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Efforts to stop Iran reaching that point go back decades, as Norman Hermant reports.
ساعت الان 3:37 دقیقه.
The bombs and missiles keep landing as Israel continues its devastating attacks on Iran's nuclear program, and Tehran strikes back. A decade ago, there was a nuclear deal with Iran.
This will be the best deal possible to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
The U.S. and other countries loosened economic sanctions, and Iran agreed not to develop a nuclear weapon. But in his first term, President Donald Trump was not on board, arguing the deal was too economically beneficial to Iran.
We have terminated a terrible, terrible deal that should have never, ever been made. And we will be putting on among the strongest sanctions that we've ever put on a country.
Barbara Slavin has analyzed U.S.-Iran relations for more than 4 decades.
The deal was working until Donald Trump was elected in 2016. He began criticizing the agreement, and he finally left it in 2018 while Iran was still in full compliance with that deal. Now, following that, Iran gradually began to ramp up the program again to the point where it was very, very advanced.
Even after the U.S. walked away, Iran remained part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT, which aims to stop the spread of nuclear weapons. But over the years, inspections became more difficult, and the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency said it could not assure that Iran's nuclear program was only peaceful.
Just before the Israelis attacked, the IAEA Board of Governors actually issued a censure resolution against the Iranian government for its lack of cooperation on these issues, which I think the Israelis thought strengthened their case to attack Iran.
Nuclear security specialist Doreen Horshik says Israel has taken advantage of the changed landscape in the Middle East. It has severely degraded Iran's ally Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Israel can operate freely over Syria since the fall of the Assad regime.
We can't say it was completely unexpected because Israel has been saying many times over that it will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, but Iran was moving closer and closer into this direction.
Israel has long argued that a nuclear-armed Iran would threaten its existence, but Barbara Slavin believes its enemies are well aware of its unofficial nuclear status. She cites estimates the country possesses multiple nuclear weapons.
So if Israel really felt that its existence was at stake, it could use nuclear weapons against Iran or any other adversary. I mean, that's why Israel developed nuclear weapons in the 1960s. It never declared them. It's not a member of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It submits to no inspections by anyone.
Middle East historian Ibrahim al-Marashi says that contradiction, that Iran is part of the NPT and Israel isn't, is hard to ignore.
A lot of commentators, or just regular people, would say that there's a double standard, that Iran adheres to the NPT, but that Israel practices a policy of nuclear opacity.
Al-Marashi believes these Israeli attacks could in fact drive Iran out of the NPT and make it more determined to build its own nuclear weapon.
Iran's reaction would be, what was the point of adhering to the Non-Proliferation Treaty? We might as well, even with all the damage done, we should get a nuclear weapon as our ultimate guarantor of survival.
And that, says Barbara Slavin, could spark a nuclear arms race in the Middle East.
And if Iran does that, there'd likely be a domino effect. The Saudis, for example, would want weapons, maybe the Turks, Egyptians, others.
Last year, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said his country wouldn't hesitate if Iran produced a nuclear weapon.
If they get one, will you? If they get one, we have to get one.
It hasn't happened yet, and it's not clear whether Iran's nuclear ambitions can survive this.